I greet you with the universal greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All of us want peace. How can we get that peace? What do we need to do? Of course, it starts off from reflection on many, many things. Reflecting on our health, reflecting on our lifestyle. Often you find that many of us, when we are hospitalized, suddenly your whole life is in front of you. You have regrets. Then you say, oh Allah, if you cure me, I'll look after my well-being. If you do this, I would do that. So therefore we have chosen this topic, vitality. And we are going to be exuberant and full of energy, because you cannot talk about vitality in a dead way. Today we're going to talk about vitality. Alhamdulillah, I've got 3 exuberant people who are going to talk about vitality. And I'm going to ask you first, Hussein. I know this is near and dear to you, and I often jokingly tell people, I tell this to my wife when I'm with Brother Hussein, oh, I am little more circumspect about my diet. And when he's not watching, I'll have all the breads in the world. Naughty boy that I am. Hussein, how would you define vitality and why is it important?
Assalamu alaikum, Idris. Vitality is such an important element in all of our lives. It affects and impacts every one of us. For me, it's a peak state or a good state of emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and also physical health. So many of us tend to think of vitality and health physically, just the body and the outside body. But there's the emotional aspect of health which can impact and lead to disease. There's the spiritual element, and there's the intellectual element, which talks to creativity, stimulation. Are we driven in life? Do we have the zest, the energy, the vigor to live life? And are we stimulated by the things around us? So, for example, if you see a beautiful scenery or a lovely sunset, does it stimulate us? Do we have that vigor and energy in life? So, a large part of health and vitality is about energy, and do we have the energy to do what we want to do, spend with our children, have that drive in life, etc. So that to me is the energy and the vitality we talk about.
It's the first time I've heard such a comprehensive definition. Often when one thinks of vitality, it is only about health. And I like what you have said, because we as Muslims are full human beings, holistic human beings. Abdul, did his definition surprise you as it surprised me?
Absolutely. Hussein looked at it in a whole holistic way. And I like the way he explained it, because he looked at it and encompassed everything. And that to me is what vitality is. Vitality to me is an amana. It's a gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hussein, you spoke about energy. In this energy, how do we get this energy? And a lot of people want to know this energy. How do we feel this energy? If we take it and respect that this is the amana, a gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I look at basically the 3 ways of how we can look at it. Is we must eat well, we must exercise well, and also empower ourselves daily with daily action. And if we do that, we will look at this, and that's how I see vitality.
Alhamdulillah, we all can feel his energy. Really, there is exuberance and energy. Alhamdulillah, he brings a lot of energy to our discussion. Yusuf, you've been unduly reticent, if I may say so.
My undue reticence is as a result of sitting with these 2 very powerful athletes. Abdul was one of the greatest fast bowlers. This was a great batsman, so hence my little bit of trepidation amongst these great warriors. So, the subject, firstly, vitality. I think I like the term vitality. A lot of people talk of healthy, but healthy is just like sort of a bit of a static type of element, where vitality, just the word vitality, conjures up that energy that we talk about. And I believe it's so important, right? It's about that energy that you vibrate. And when you have that energy is when you're able to attract so much of the abundance that you are meant to attract, that you were put on this earth for. So it's a very, very important part of your success in whatever that success means to you. on this planet.
And you know what? Listening to three of you, and when you were chatting, the thought comes to mind. Just look, Allah is so merciful. Not something that I thought about before this program. The essence of optimism. When a person, shows that exuberance, that vitality, you spoke about abundance. So there is this almost, from the internal projecting to the external. And people are happy to be with such individuals, right? So is that an important aspect? To what extent being a person that does what he's supposed to do in terms of this comprehensive definition of vitality, does he exude confidence? Is he a person of abundance that Yusuf spoke about?
I like the word abundance that Yusuf used, because most of us have dreams, we have goals. When we grow up as youngsters in school, we want to be somebody or something, or we have these goals that we're striving towards. And then as we get older, slowly, we find that somehow they tend to get a bit duller. We tend to get a bit flat. We lose the vigor, the energy, the drive. And people that continue living with vitality, who have that balance in life, who balance the different elements of their life, they tend to exude that confidence you talk about. And it's so important if we want to achieve and have that drive throughout the day. So if you wake up in the morning, do you wake up energetic, or do you wake up really tired? And that already should trigger something, should be some sort of feedback. After lunch, when you have a good meal or a decent meal lunchtime, it's important not to overeat as well. But do you tend to feel tired? I know that used to happen to me, and when I changed my lifestyle and changed certain things and what I ate, suddenly my afternoons were I had a lot more energy. And even into the evening, after a supper, do you have that energy? So some people will work throughout the night. Some people fall asleep after lunch. But it's important to structure your life in a way that you can exude that energy, that you can continue to have the energy to drive and to experience that abundance that we talk about.
Okay, before Abdul, I want you to respond to this. So what you are saying, essentially, that you could have a plan of action, you could have some kind of routine. And now, Abdul, I know you mentor lots of people. How important is it to have this kind of routine? And I know you also have a routine which you shared with me this morning, right? How critical is it?
The first thing is you start your day with gratitude. When you start with that kind of gratitude, you are thankful for what you have. And you need to assess where you are at every moment of your life. And when you do, how you do this assessment is, I look at it as A, B, C, D. A, are we assuming we are where we are? B, are we blaming someone else? And Hussein talks about we get tired. We're blaming something, our condition. Are we doing C? Are we complaining and criticizing daily? D, are we depressed? E, what are we eating? Is it dropping our energy? F, we will feel failure. But if we change that to positive A, we no more assume, we become A aware. We can take the correct action. We do B, we do things braver, better, and Hussein talked about balance. Then we will have the body that we talk about. Then C will happen. All of us want the proper curves. We will have C. D, we will suddenly have the right diet.
Problem is
we will have the right energy, and F, we will feel fulfilled and feel free.
You when you start the ABC, I'm into Z, my friend. Right. Z. And in fact, if you don't do that, you'll feel goofy for G, right? And what you want is to feel great, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right? And then H, you'll be the hunk, right?
And you mustn't be hungry.
Right. So, alhamdulillah, this is important. This is important. You know why? And I share it with our viewers. I see a lot of sadness in our communities. I feel people who are in the twilight years of their life, they say, if I did this, I should have done this. That optimism is gone. They're depressed. They're concerned about the future. They realize, my gosh, I'm going to meet my Creator. How am I going to meet Him? So what you are saying, Hussein, all of you are saying that today is the time. It's now to reflect on all aspects of your life and do something concrete. Organize your life, right? Yusuf, I know you are involved with many things also in the community. And in your own reflection on your life, I know the time I met Yusuf, I often remind him, it was always, Abdul, as we all know, searching for meaning, right? And do you think you have found your niche in life? Do you think you lead a balanced life? What do you need to do? And I want you to be self-critical as much as you sit there, you have a halo effect. What are things that perhaps you need to do differently?
Yeah, I think as a business advisor, it took me a long time to find my mission that I was put on earth for. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, right? But I found that. And I realize how important vitality is for that. Because what's the point in impacting people if you're unhealthy? How are you going to impact people if you're unhealthy, right? As a businessman, or whatever your vocation is on this planet, you have to have that energy that comes from living with vitality. And that's critical.
The other important, just to follow up on what Yusuf is saying, is so often we see today people who have fantastic potential and talent, but their life gets cut short in their 30s because somebody gets heart attack, stroke, cancer, etc., etc. And a lot of those, diabetes included, are lifestyle diseases. So they get brought on by a poor lifestyle, and that's sad.
It's the choices we make that defines us daily. What choices are we making? Because that is our definition of where we are.
But this is the whole point. And there we have it, viewers. The point is, should you go through some trauma before you say, I want to change? If you are in a comfort zone now, much later when you're in the twilight years of your life, that will be your recurring nightmare. So we encourage you to reflect, and alhamdulillah, I'm sure you've been inspired, and be back soon, inshallah.
Time is now. Time is now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you. Alhamdulillah, whenever we have these breaks, we have a far more animated discussion amongst ourselves that is very, very healthy. And you can see from my stomach how healthy it is, alhamdulillah. And Hussein, I want to ask you this question, right? Alhamdulillah, I think you gave a very beautiful, succinct definition of vitality, and it's something new to me. And I'm always learning from interacting with people, and I think this is it. You've got to have an open mind and learn from people. Now, a question that any person will ask you, obviously, why is it important? Why is vitality so important?
Idris, that's a fantastic question. And we spoke in the previous segment about energy, and I think we've exhausted that. Let's move on to a few other elements as to why it's so important in our life today. When we look around us, we see so many people who are overweight. If you have to go into a photo album or a family album 20, 30 years ago, try and maybe look and see how many overweight or obese people you can find. And you'll be amazed. You actually won't find that many. Most people were thin and slim. So how is it that within a generation, within 10, 20, 30 years, suddenly 2/3 of middle-aged South African women are overweight or morbidly obese? That's what the stats say. So then we talk about obesity. Obesity leads to things like, and those are things that impact almost all of us when we get to our 30s and 40s. And people tell me every day, I'm eating the same food, I'm doing the same things. Why am I suddenly picking up weight? And there's various reasons. Large part of it is lifestyle, we touched on that. Large part of it is nutrition, we spoke about that. And we'll get more into that as we go on. Disease prevention is another big one. I touched on the fact that young people are getting heart attacks, strokes, cancer, diabetes. Adult onset diabetes is type 2 diabetes. So type 2 diabetes and adult onset diabetes, the reason it was called that is because people used to only get type 2 diabetes when they were in their 40s and 50s. Today, young children as young as 5 and 6 are being diagnosed with so-called adult onset diabetes. It's absolutely frightening. So we're sitting on a time bomb, diabetes time bomb, obesity. South Africa are now one of the top 3 countries in the world when it comes to being the most obese nations in the world. it's scary. So United States lead the way because of their Western lifestyle, the diets. And unfortunately, the rest of the world, like India, Japan, China, and who were eating healthy diets, tend these days to be following the West. Whether it's the McDonald's, whether it's the Coca-Colas, whether it's whatever, we tend to be following those type of lifestyles. And as a result, unfortunately, our health is decreasing as well.
Isn't that the issue, right? Is the fact that, I mean, you brought a very, very important point, is this, that the world we live in, this whole globalization, as much as it has a lot of positives, it has also created this fast-paced lifestyle. So, which is again against, I believe, the natural way humans are supposed to live. I mean, we don't even have proper breakfasts anymore.
Yes.
We don't even have dinner. One of the most important elements is to have a meal together. Because when you, it's even a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ,
absolutely.
that you, when you have meals, you conversing. It takes, amongst the Mediterranean culture, I know it's very strong. That is, it comes out of even the Arab culture.
Correct.
Is with when you meet, it sometimes takes 2 to 3 hours when you eat. Our Western world
And your
is
food
just
digests.
about fast food, quickly going in, munching your food. Everything is done so fast-paced. So that's where all the ills come in. You talk about diseases and so on.
I mean, you know, we live in a microwave culture. I tell people today, where 10, 15, 20 years ago, I would wake up in the morning, my mother would have some jungle oats on the stove. It would simmer and cook, and it would take 10, 20, 30 minutes. And you'd eat that. And it's an extremely nutritious and healthy breakfast to have. You will have some eggs, whether it's scrambled or poached or fried or whatever the case is. Today, it's take a box, pour it, boiling water or milk, eat it, and on you go. And some kids don't even have breakfast. It's a challenge I know I have at home with my young kids, because they want to rush out of the house as quick as possible. So we live in this microwave culture where everything must happen instantly. And that is part of the problem.
Okay, Hussein, the question to be asked. People say that life is so frenetic today. There are so many stresses in our life. Where is the time to live consciously? And when you spoke initially about, you know, your outfits and whatnot, I was really reflecting on I got Abdul a lovely suit, my wedding suit. If I wear the coat now, it'll be more like a waistcoat. Really, you know, just a question, Abdul. I mean, I know that you help people time management, and if you look at it, what Hussein is saying, that you got to stop now. We're not talking about something esoteric or something by the way. We're speaking about your life. We're speaking about making choices, right?
He said a time bomb.
Time bomb, really. So this is a crisis that we are, a crisis. Alhamdulillah. Allah protect us, right? Abdul, I mean, what do we do?
No, the Prophet ﷺ said, take the 5 before 5, your health before sickness. You know, we don't appreciate this moment in our life. We don't live this moment. We're chasing the world. We're worried about what if tomorrow, what if tomorrow. We're living in the future. If we're not living in the future, we look at our past. What has we done in our past? And we look at what we eat, and we are staying there. We have to live in this moment. And Idris, what you say, it's now. There is no more time. You know, why must it be that this time bomb must happen to us? This accident must happen to us. We're caught by a sickness. Why? It's all there. We have to make a decision today.
So, Abdul, one of the important elements that I pick up is the fact that this Western world that we live in is all about excess and about waste. It's just about accumulation, right? Isn't the life that we live in today all about just accumulating excess? And if you go back to the Prophet ﷺ, you know, there's such wisdom in simple things of the Prophet ﷺ. What comes to mind is the way he ate. He ate with 3 fingers. Now, why would you eat with 3 fingers? Is because you're not eating in excess. You take in a few morsels and you put in your mouth. That is as simple as it may seem. What does it do from a digestive perspective? And I mean, you could actually add a lot of value in terms of that. You're taking more time to chew your food. Your system also works better rather than just gulping all your food down. Simple thing like drinking water. He would not gulp it. He would sip on it. These are so, and you know, you talked of awareness. So if you're sitting and eating and you're doing it with this element of awareness, what's going to happen? Everything slows down. Right? Whereas the world we live in is everything's just so fast and so on. And I think that's where all the issues come in terms of...
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, one of the worst things that we can do is sit and eat in front of the TV. Because that's what leads to part of the excess. You tend to eat a lot more. You don't even know what you're eating, how you're eating, how fast you're eating, how slow you're eating, but because you're watching or focusing on something else, and you just carry on eating. And those are the type of things. So you talk about eating with 3 fingers. Today, dietitians and nutritionists will talk about calories and limiting the amount of calories you eat. And we had all the answers all those thousands of years ago. The answers were there. You know, so a large part of it, particularly around nutrition, diet, lifestyle, is about going back. You know, if you look at ancient India and we go back to, you spoke about Mediterranean cultures, in the Arabic cultures, in many of those ancient cultures, the answers were there. They talk to moderation. They talk to limiting the amount we eat. If we overeat, you're going to feel lethargic, you're going to feel lazy straight after that. So you're absolutely spot on.
You know, just on that, you know, the Prophet ﷺ says a beautiful way and comes to another hadith that reminds me of that, a third. If we can do it in moderation, what Hussein talks about, a third water, a third food, and the rest for air, so we could be balanced. You know, that small little hadith, which is so profound, which impacts us, and if we just follow the small steps that it's there, our life will be balanced.
Yes, indeed, my beloved viewers, at an appropriate time to end this segment, again talking about the most eloquent example of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The solutions are there. Let us read the seerah, embrace the sunnah, inshallah. I have no doubt that you will not have the ailments that many of us have today. We'll be back immediately after this break.
Time is now. Time is now.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Inspirate. Haha, naughty. I saw some of you going to the fridge and taking out some fat ice cream. Naughty. So, alhamdulillah, I know you're weaning yourself off some of these foods, inshallah. So my question, Hussein, to you is, it's an obvious question, but a question I need to ask. Why are we so unhealthy?
That is a fantastic question, because it really, we now got to get to reality. The reality is that if we ask ourselves, and the first step I take when somebody is looking for assistance or help with regards to how to change their life from a diet perspective and health perspective, is to say, give me your diary. So I'll give him a piece of paper and say, what I'd like you to do is write down exactly what you are eating for 3 days. Even if it's a teaspoon of something, or if it's a tablespoon or a cup or a plate, write it down, exactly what you're eating. And people are very often shocked. You know, I had a gentleman recently who said to me he's eating exactly what his doctors asked him to eat. He's eating a healthy, living a healthy lifestyle, walks, jogs, goes to gym regularly. And when he came back with a piece of paper and he wrote down exactly what he ate, then only did he discover he was having about 12 slices of bread a day. White bread, and he didn't realize that. And part of the problem was that he was now suddenly on 3 or 4 different medications. He was picking up weight. He didn't know what was going on, couldn't lose the weight, etc. So once you start appraising or analyzing what you're eating, it's amazing. You'll discover that things like white flour is a big culprit today. Things like sugar, processed foods, everything we eat. When you walk into a supermarket today, bulk of what we're exposed to has got sugar included in it. You know, so for many generations, and Professor Tim Noakes and many others today, even the Atkins, Professor Dr. Atkins in the late 70s spoke about where fat was demonized. And people were saying, let's take the fat out of everything. So today you walk into a supermarket, you'll find low-fat this, no-fat this, etc., etc. So the fat was taken out, and what manufacturers and sugar companies, food companies did is they put sugar in to give it that extra taste. They took the fat out and put sugar in. And over a 20-year period, we discovered that diseases were just doing this and were going up. So a large part of it, Idris, to answer your question, comes back to what we are eating and taking into our bodies and the impact that is having. So it's processed foods, it's sugar, it's high sugar foods. I always say to people, when you with a choice and you don't know what to eat, always choose farm over factory. Rather eat an apple than go and have a cereal, a box cereal. You know, have fresh fish as opposed to something that comes from a tin. So choose farm over factory. That's an important element.
I mean, what you're saying about sugar, right? I believe that they say sugar is probably the most dangerous drug. And they call it a drug because, and it's done in such a sort of, pardon the pun, but a sweet way, right? Because you actually, as a child, you're given those cereals, baby cereals, and there's loaded with sugars. There's all these different ads around having these healthy cereals as you grow up, and they're all loaded with sugars. And now these days, they even camouflage the sugars. If you look at the packets, through a different term for it, right? You know, they won't say sugars, but they'll call it something else. And these are all ways of actually making us addictive to this drug. And it shows in all different ways. I mean, as a businessman, they say one of the killers to entrepreneurship is the dependency on sugars. Why? It lowers your energy. It lessens your focus. So you can't actually be, we talk of vision and all of that, you can't really be fulfilling that vision and your goals because of a simple thing like our addiction to sugars.
So I think, Karen Abdul.
And I can relate to what Hussein says, and I can take an example of myself, and I look at myself, you know, funny enough, I'm closing the age of 50 shortly.
Wow.
But doing that, I suddenly became aware, because you're looking for short-term solutions, because life is short, and you don't know. So I start going to gym. I start doing what you say, Hussein. But somehow, when I look at the weight and the scales, it still reflects the same thing. I'm doing gym. I'm eating well. I go at home and I love desserts. You know, you talk of sugars. I love those things. But somehow, I do what's told, but you're still tempted into this world of temptation. You know, Hussein, I want to ask you this question. Although I do all this, knowing this, but sometimes when you look at that scale, you still see the same results. A lot of people are frustrated that they do everything and they still have that. Why is that?
Actually, I'm surprised you're seeing the same results. It is one of the most interesting and fascinating things I found when I started on this journey was I used to go to the gym. I started picking up weight about 4 or 5 years ago. In fact,
Hussein, could I just stop you
Sure.
there? I want you to talk about that because it's very important for people to learn your personal history, right?
Sure.
Inshallah. So there we have it, viewers. We are going to talk about Hussein's transformation and his response to Abdul Manak. We are now going to show you an inset, and we would like you to reflect on it. And when we come back, we would continue with our discussion.
Time is now.
Welcome to Inspirate. Today I am with Patrick Holford, renowned and best-selling author of various and numerous books, nutritionist as well as thought leader in our healthcare system around the world. How are you doing, Patrick? Welcome to South Africa.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Weather is better than Britain.
I'm sure it is, especially this time of the year. I'm going to get right into it. We're sitting with a global healthcare situation where I read the other day there's approximately 400 million people that are diagnosed as being diabetic. Then we have many more who are pre-diabetic. We're sitting with a situation where in South Africa, I know roughly 2/3 of adult South Africans are obese. So globally, there appears to be a trend and a pattern.
Oh, no question. And we're now at the point where for every one person who dies of starvation every day, there are 2 who are dying from obesity. I mean, for example, in England, we have 500 to 600 people a week dying directly from the consequences of obesity. And as you say, 500 million with diabetes by at least 2030, 2 billion significantly overweight. Cancer in the Western world, I'm not so sure in South Africa, is now lifetime risk is 1 in 3. It's drifting to 1 in 2. Alzheimer's is actually one of the most worrying trends of all because diabetes costs the state an awful lot of money, but in fact Alzheimer's will be even more than that. So it's very clear that us humans in the 21st century, you know, we're almost programmed for extinction. You know, we've apparently developed in lots of ways, but I was in in Dubai recently, which I called the diabesity capital of the world. And I was teaching in a sixth form college, kids around, you know, 15, 16, 17,000 children, 160 have diabetes already.
Unbelievable. We should, you know, be moving in the opposite direction, shouldn't be, with all the technology and the advancement in medicine and science. So where has it all gone wrong?
Well, I think where it's definitely gone wrong to do with sugar. You know, that's the truth. We are eating, you know, about 80 kilos a year. I mean, ridiculous amounts of sugar. And unfortunately, the sugar lobby is so strong. Fortunately, the World Health Organization finally, because they tried about 8 years ago to get a reduction in the sugar requirement, and they got slaughtered. And what happened was the sugar industry put the pressure on the American government, who said we won't fund the WHO if you go ahead with this. But now, at least the WHO say no more than 5% of calories is sugar. But I think that the real problem is, we know it is sugar, and we know that sugar is addictive, and we know that we're drinking way too many fizzy drinks. And unfortunately, politicians are usually in power for 5 years, so they don't want to do anything terribly unpopular. However, we need strong measures, not minor measures. And at the very, very least, we have to be taxing sugary drinks to make them more expensive, which makes them less attractive. We have to be labeling foods. If, as the WHO say, anything, we should not have more than 5% of calories as sugar, then why don't we label anything that has more than 5%, you know, as bad for your health, because in truth it is. But I think also we have to have a community-based process. So everyone, be it doctors and nurses and teachers in the schools and social workers and, everyone that influences anyone needs to be on board in a campaign to change diet, because we are literally digging our own graves with a knife and fork.
I'm just wondering if the healthcare systems around the world, particularly in third world countries, will be able to manage with the type of economic stress and burden it's going to be placed
I
under.
think it can be done. For example, in Mexico, where they've had a big increase in diabetes and heart disease and obesity, they noticed that it directly correlated with the increase in sugary drinks. So they did something about it. They are taxing sugar, they are educating. So we have to start to have this much more proactive approach to diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and so on. And I think there are some areas of improvement, like exercise. So it's terribly important that children at school are exercising, we're encouraging exercising, encouraging healthy eating. But governments have got to get tough, and unfortunately a lot of them depend on the drug industry, they depend on the food industry. So really it's a political problem.
Are we over-prescribing medication? Somebody walks in and they diagnosed with diabetes type 2. Is a pill, whether it's a metformin or whatever it is it prescribed too quickly before we look at lifestyle interventions and so forth?
No, absolutely. And I wrote a book some years ago called Food is Better Medicine Than Drugs, and we looked at the major chronic diseases from diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, and so on, and asked, which works better, the drugs or the nutritional solution? And I think that, unfortunately, the medical profession has largely been hijacked by the pharmaceutical industry. A doctor will learn thousands and thousands of hours of which drug do I prescribe. And of course, the crazy thing is, if you have high blood pressure or you have diabetes, or you have, pain, there's an intelligent question to ask, which is, what's the cause? How did I get to be this way? And it's extraordinary when you find out that something like eating oats, porridge oats, plus oat cakes, just doing that is as effective as metformin, which is the most prescribed drug. But I've never heard a diabetic, coming out with a prescription for oats and oat cakes. Or cinnamon, also is very good. Or chromium. Chromium is very, very effective in controlling blood sugar. It's an essential mineral. It's very, very cheap. and available. But I don't even think that doctors can prescribe it. And the reason they don't learn about it, but they do learn about, the new drugs, is that you can't patent, cinnamon or oats. They exist in nature. You can only patent something that's man-made. So the truth is, even metformin, which is probably the best drug for diabetes, it's off patent. So the monopoly is over. It's generic. There's no money to be made. So we then move to the glitazone drugs and now the GLP-1 agonists, which are already showing a risk of increased pancreatic cancer. So all this new drugs, it's not really to do with what works better. It's actually to do with how can we make some more money since the patent has run out. So, for example, next year we'll start to see the super statins because the statins, which we've been sold for lowering cholesterol, they're not actually very effective drugs. Lipitor, the last ones, come off patent. So, the big profit's gone. So they'll be killed off, and then the next drug.
Something new,
and, it's crazy. And absolutely, we all know, and doctors know, I'm sure they would agree, there's not enough training, in nutrition.
What is your view on the low-carb, high-fat diet as opposed to, I just came out to the workshop where you're talking about the low-GL diet.
Yes.
We just talk
Explain
to some
that,
of our
yes.
listeners about the difference between
Absolutely.
the two and what your views are.
So the first thing is it's now really understood by those who are, in this field that one of the big problems is that when you eat too many carbohydrates, you produce insulin and then you become resistant to insulin. It doesn't work. So then you make even more insulin, and insulin can raise your blood pressure, your blood fats, your cholesterol, and risk for diseases. So we have to get the insulin down, and you do that by eating a low glycemic load diet. And one extreme, like you say, is to eat no carbs at all. So you've got to eat something. So what you eat is a lot of fat, a lot of protein. And the only way to really get a lot of fat and protein is to eat a lot of meat and dairy products, cheese and that sort of thing. And, it works. I mean, it does control diabetes, does cause weight loss. But, we've had this phase in England and now it's gone for a few reasons. First of all, people don't like it long term, so it doesn't have good long-term compliance. Secondly, when you have a very high meat and a very high fat diet, especially if it's animal fat that you're grilling or braising or burning or whatever, this is a recipe for colorectal cancer. It's very bad because we know that the burnt animal fats turn cells in the colon into cancer cells. And we know that the hormones in milk, and these are not artificial hormones, they make things grow. That's what milk's job is. And unfortunately, it makes cancer cells grow. So you don't want, cheese and meat burnt, fried, etc. So this is not a good diet long term. Short term, it can help with weight loss, diabetes, and sugar cravings. But my approach is a little bit more, moderate. You do eat carbohydrates, but less. You choose the right ones. So it's the brown rice and the brown bread. And for example, not everyone knows, but berries, cherries, and plums, their sugar releases very slowly, while bananas, grapes, dates, and raisins very fast. So mine is less carbs, the right ones. You always eat them with protein, so egg on toast is good, but jam on toast is not. And and lots of vegetables. But what's interesting is that the weight loss in studies of these two approaches is the same. The diabetes control, it is the same. The cardiovascular risk reduction is greater with my approach. But what I really like is that it becomes just a way of life. So people don't have to then go and do something else. They say it's just how I eat.
Patrick, it's been fantastic talking to you. Thank you very much, and I hope we hope to see you back in South Africa pretty soon. And please enjoy the rest of your tour.
Thank you for having me.
Time is now.
I'm sure you benefited from that insight, and I hope you're reflecting on your eating habits, your living habits, because in the end, all of us want to be productive. We want to lead meaningful lives that Allah is pleased with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We'll be back in a moment.
Time is now. Time is now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I pray that you are doing great, and I'm sure many of you are waiting for Hussein's story, his personal transformation. And I pray that his story inspires all of us, and including your good self. Hussein, tell us the story, please.
Jazakallah Idris. Well, it's to answer Abdul's question, the one he alluded to earlier about where he was going to gym regularly and, and he actually wasn't losing weight. The scale was the same.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what happened to me a few years ago when I went for Hajj. Got back, I found myself picking up a lot of weight. And interestingly, when I was in Mina, and a lot of us who have been there on that journey know that it's so hot there, 40 degrees, you drink a lot of liquids. It so happened I ended up drinking a lot of cold drinks, a lot of juices, which are very high in sugar. Came back and I found myself overweight, and obviously this has been happening over a period of 8-10 years. It wasn't just that particular Hajj. Got back, got into the gym and started gymming really hard. But I actually found myself picking up weight. So the question I want to ask Abdul quickly, it's a yes or no. When you go to gym and you have a workout, do you feel more hungry or less hungry after that?
More hungry.
More hungry, absolutely. So if you're eating the wrong foods, when you come back from gym, you are actually going to pick up weight. So many people go to gym, they work really hard physically, they think they're going to lose weight, and they actually find themselves picking up weight. So one of the key elements, and this goes into how we can start enforcing change and changing today, is how we can change what we eat. Nutrition, diet. So we spoke about sugar, carbs, things like potatoes, things like white rice, white flour, all those things, and start getting into starting to eat more healthy and natural foods. The Sunnah talks about all those type of elements, and I know, Idris, you also wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, when you were speaking, a thought comes to mind that you are what you eat. And in fact, I just want to share a very quick story. There was once a person that was on parole in America, and when he was in parole, he nearly killed his wife. He showed aggressive behavior. Then they had a new psychologist and a dietitian. They looked at his eating habits and what he was eating. When they changed his diet, his behavior changed. Sometimes when parents are looking at the children's behavior, look at the diet and inshallah you'll find what is it that is informing that behavior. But the question for me is critical that we refer to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and no matter where you go, one of the recurring themes is about halal food. But our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam also spoke about tayyib, organic food. How important is this organic food, Yusuf?
When you talk of organic, and you guys talked of also your experience in Hajj, I must say that I had a very different experience. Having been conscious about my health, right, has been wanting to eat organic food, right, and but yet always have a challenge because I'm always picking up weight, and it's always fluctuating. When I went for Hajj, it was a different experience because you maybe not gymming, but you exercising by walking. You're doing so much more walking, and they say when you walk at a certain pace, I learned this later, that pace allows you to lose weight. It's not about running that makes you lose weight. It's a certain pace. So because when you're doing tawaf, you're walking at a certain pace, all that resulted in me losing at least 3 kilos. Importantly also, I believe in the Arab world more than maybe the way we live in the Western world, is that it's still more a focus on organic food. So when you eat in there, wheat, for example, which you spoke about, it's not so much that wheat is bad because you think wheat was from the times of the prophets. But why now wheat is so bad? It's because the processed wheat we're eating.
Correct.
Whereas there, you're still having that traditional bread that's been made with long grain wheat. So all of that helps because they're eating more organic foods. And I mean, there's so many different types of those foods that the Prophet ﷺ has prescribed.
Yes, Abdul, I want you to come in here. In terms of the foods Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to eat, and I think more than that, merely mentioning it, I think it's important for them to know the benefits, because what people have found today, people have scientific evidence about the value of the Sunnah, the kinds of foods our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ate, and I think it's important for us to embrace that.
There's a few. I want to start with vegetables. When Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ate was mushrooms and squash. And they say the benefits of mushroom cure your eyes. Now you can just see that the benefits of organic foods again. And he talks about fruit, like pomegranate, figs. And the beauty of figs, Uncle Idris, it's helpful towards growth and piles.
And
So-
Abdul, please don't call me Uncle Idris.
I always have respect for you, my brother. I
Alhamdulillah.
always love you.
Just say it Idris.
Idris. And,
Alhamdulillah.
I want to talk about dates, so I can have a date with you and we can chat about this, Uncle Idris. Dates is another thing that the Prophet ﷺ had. Also, in the morning, honey. The benefits of honey and how it affects you.
On honey, I want to say something that's very pertinent. I learned that honey is actually great for hair. Right?
You're surprised that you say
Exactly, right? And I'm challenged there,
Yeah.
right? Now, in our family, all our family has lost our hair, except my father, who has honey every morning since he was a child. So, I mean, that's the beauty of it.
And also grapes and melons. These fruits, if we eat them, there's so much benefits of it. Alhamdulillah, it's important that we use these organic foods, Uncle Idris.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, there's two other ones that come out very strongly, is olive oil and vinegar. And interestingly, if you go to these fancy Italian restaurants, it's become a major trend now. And that came from the Prophet ﷺ, the value of olive oil and vinegar.
I think over the years there's been a lot of focus. I spoke earlier about fats, and we've demonized fats over the years. But olive oil, avocados, those type of things are such healthy fats. It's important to include those in our diet on a daily basis. So with every meal, it is important to have some sort of either monounsaturated fat or even omega-3 fatty acids, which are fish. It said that if you can have fish or a fishy meal 3 times a week, your health improves substantially. Right? So that's really important. Things like nuts and seeds, include those, sprinkle them on your cereals and so forth. Really important.
Another thing I want to talk about, and it's important, is water. 73% of this body, of our bodies, is made out of water. So it's important that we have water and liquids in our body. Also milk. That is critical, guys.
Yeah, the Prophet ﷺ said that milk wipes away the heat in your heart like your finger wipes the sweat on your brow.
Allahu Akbar.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. There we have it, right? Now, what is one last point you want to make? Hussein, start off with you first.
I think key is, we've spoken about some really healthy foods here. Important to remember everything in moderation. Even something that is healthy for us scientifically and medically, if we overdo it, it's going to become unhealthy. So moderation is important. A balanced lifestyle is very important. I think it's time for all of us today, considering the time bomb we're sitting with, is to start taking action today, becoming aware, educating ourselves, and more importantly, our children, with regards to what we are consuming, what we're eating. Do a little bit of physical activity every day. Get moving. The human body is designed to move. Walk, park your car further away, take the stairs as opposed to the escalator. Get moving and start changing your life today.
Abdul?
I agree with what you're saying about exercise. And if we can exercise regularly, start just taking a walk around the block, start being proactive rather than reactive. When we see food, become proactive, become aware. Ask yourself, what must I eat? And know what it does to your body. When we self-reflect, we become aware. And that is critical.
For me, it's about holistic living. I think that's very, very critical. That came out strongly. I think we've become a society that's become very dependent on drugs as quick solutions, and we need to look at our lives in a more multifaceted approach. Hussein, you spoke about the emotional element, spiritual, how important is spiritual to your health, as well as the intellectual elements. If you take it in a multifaceted approach, I believe we'll start living this lives of vitality and healthy lifestyles.
Yes, my beloved viewers, the Ummah needs strong people. We need to live consciously. So each time you take a morsel of food, there are those who do not have this food. You thank Allah for it. In that way, you'll eat enough so that you could pray to Allah and serve humanity. So my beloved brothers and sisters, once again, our aim is for us to reflect on our lives, reflect on how we are living, because we want each one of you to lead happy, long lives so that you too can leave a legacy. This is Idris Khamisa saying, Shukran, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.